My dad would sell his liver if it meant that I could drive a Formula car. Constantly, my parents would tell me, don't take risky moves. We can't afford to crash. They gambled everything. Like my parents, loaned off our house. They sold.
So when you sit in the car and you have the helmet on,
you're cornering, you're experiencing lateral G, you're turning the wheel, you're braking, you're trailing into the corner, and then you have to. Hi everyone, I'm Bianca Bustamante. I'm a Filipino racing driver and I'm in great company, but I'm also a great company.
Formula One Academy's rising superstar
Bustamante, who crosses the line first.
When you drive a race car, you become the scenery, you join it. Car does 60% of the job, but to finish it, it comes down to the driver. Racing is instinct. It's either you have it or you don't.
wow, really?
I've got a brother, he's got a heart problem and he's also got autism and Down syndrome. So I always felt guilty about racing. It was so selfish of me to really pursue the sport. I've got no other option but to succeed.
Have you ever had a bad crash? Was there ever a point when you nearly gave up racing?
100%. I was depressed and everything. Like I had no fight in me. I still get so emotional when I speak about it, but.
Guys, welcome back to Great Company. Today's episode is going to blow your mind. We have Bianca Bustamante on the podcast. Now, that name might not ring any bells for you, but I promise you stay tuned for this one. Now, Bianca is a Formula One Academy driver. She's a woman. She is 20 years old, from the Philippines, where she grew up incredibly poor, and has worked her way up to be one of the forces to be reckoned with in the Formula division. She's currently driving Formula E, but she has aspirations to make Formula One very soon. She'll be one of the only female drivers to ever do it. Incredible, incredible story. This episode is going to be about strength, resilience, about when you really put your mind to something, you can achieve anything. So get ready for this. Now, also, so many of you haven't quite subscribed to the show. So if you're watching this and you enjoy this, please click that subscribe button. I can't tell you how much it does for us. It does absolute wonders for the show. It means we can keep getting the great guests and keep delivering on amazing stories. So please do that. Okay, enjoy this episode of Great Company with Bianca Bustamante. Bianca, I heard that apparently you don't have your driver's license.
No, Well, let me explain.
Okay.
So not in the UK, not yet. But when I was 17, that was like when I first officially moved out of like my home in the Philippines. And before I turned 17, got my driver's license, I was like, finally, I'll be driving in the streets. And then I got a call, be like, yeah, you need to race. So you need to move out of Philippines and live abroad. So I still haven't driven like a proper car on the road yet.
Shall I be honest about my driving history just quickly? Okay, get ready for this. This is going to shock you. So I don't know if you have the same in the Philippines, but we have something called a theory test.
A theory, that's like the practical, and then you've got like on paper written exam.
Okay, so we don't have a written exam, thank God.
Oh.
Okay, we don't have that. We just have like a multiple choice like thing that we just basically, you pick A, B or C or D or whatever. Since I was 18 years old, I've booked that 70 times. 70.
You're joking.
I swear. I booked it 70 times, okay. Finally passed my driving test. I was like, I'm on the streets. Here we go. Watch out, roads. And I got 6 points in my first year. So I got my whole license taken away. Everything.
Yeah.
I have to redo my theory test. I have to redo my driving test.
What were you doing?
Nothing. I was going 26 and a 20. I mean, that is obviously illegal. But
I don't promote driving fast or above the speed limit as a racing driver. I'm joking.
Okay, exactly. Your story is honestly incredible, and it really is. It's super inspirational. And I was saying to you, so many people I've been speaking about that you were coming on, and they were just so excited. What you represent, what you're doing, and I want to get into all of that. Before we get into that, right? But then I'm a complete novice in like Formula One and in that space. Explain to me what it is for anyone listening who have no idea about Formula One or race driving or anything like that.
Driving in circles, pretty much.
That's it. All right, next question. Okay, here we go.
Driving like donuts and like different weird shaped pizzas. That's pretty much it, yeah.
But the thing which I find so interesting about it is that there are people, when you watch, like, Drive to Survive is a big thing at the moment, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I think of the sort of popularity of, like, especially Formula One has like risen, because people would just watch it on like a Sunday or whenever it was, but now you can watch it on Netflix and people see the ins and the outs of what's going on. I didn't realize the tactics that go into racing?
Honestly, I think that's one of like the common misconception about racing is just it is just driving in circles. Well, that's the main ploy of it all, but actually the amount of theoretical and thinking and planning and strategizing to actually, win a race, that's a technical bit. It's like I think that's why I'm able to share my sport with so many of the people right now in my generation. It's because of Drive to Survive. Like I no longer have to explain, the technical bits of it because you get to see it in person, you get to see it on TV, and it's so amazing. Like, for example, in a race weekend, we go through such a roller coaster of emotions, and not just emotions, but of events as well. You go from like practice to quali to the actual race, and you think about all these different variables, like when you watch a Formula One race, you see the car and the driver, but you don't see the teams of people behind it. There's about 100 to 200 engineers like graduate from Cambridge, Harvard, MIT, all different top schools, literally thinking alike and like literally like working as one unit to make sure that that car finishes first. And so many like decision making comes into making that happen. You can think of it's like I'd relate it to playing golf. With golf, you think it's so easy, just swing a bat and like hit the ball, right? But then there's wind change, there's humidity, and there's the grass, and it's very similar to racing. Like you think of, for example, a safety car happens or it starts raining, you have to then think of plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And it's like so many things can go wrong. And it's so mathematical that a group of people needs to like work together to make it happen.
So how much is down to, in any sort of racing, is down to the sort of quality of the driver and the quality of the car?
This is it's quite a controversial topic. I mean, obviously to be world champion, you need to have both. In very rare occasions, does a driver become world champion in a not dominant car. So you think of drivers like, for example, obviously now our reigning world champion Max Verstappen.
Yeah.
He didn't have the fastest car last season. I'd like to say that. Definitely not. I'd like to say McLaren had a brilliant car, but because Max was just so ahead of everyone and is just in a different level of his driving, his capacity, I feel like to be a great Formula One driver, you need to have the capacity to be able to adapt in any situation, any given situation. And Max did that so brilliantly, even though his car was not the best. So I would love to say that, the car does 60% of the job, but to finish it, it comes down to the driver.
Wow. Really?
100%. Yeah.
And a lot of it is down to risk taking, right?
It's risk. It's also calculating risk. It's also knowing when to take risk. Because there are times where it can cost you the whole championship. It can cost you a race, or it can cost you money as well. Obviously, if you crash, it's quite expensive.
But you're 20 years old, right?
Yes.
You have been racing since you were 6.
Yes.
Take me all the way back. Okay, I want to know, and I want every little bit of detail.
Oh my gosh, I don't think an hour is enough.
Yeah, sorry, we've already been an hour. Now we have to go back. No, but I do, because it's from growing up in the Philippines, where racing, it's a, as you sort of spoken about it, it's kind of like a sort of European sport in lots of ways.
Very, very Western sport. We would have a saying in the Philippines that it's for the privileged group of people in the world that, I, as a Filipino, unfortunately, we weren't, no one really is wealthy enough, because I think that's one thing that you kind of learn as you go along in motorsport is that there's always going to be someone richer than you in the sport. It's hard to compete with someone that has infinite wealth. And that's literally the picture of motorsport. It's like infinite wealth.
But break that down for me. Why does wealth really help in the sport?
To drive, you've already needed to spend money on a race suit that costs thousands of dollars, a helmet that costs thousands of dollars, your mechanic that you pay for, your engineer that you pay for, a car that you have to rent on a daily basis. It's about, 15, a ballpark of 15 grand, depending on what car it is. Wow. And then you consume tires, you consume fuel, obviously you have to pay for the track. So the mileage on the car, every lap, on average, you spend maybe $500 per lap. Wow. If you add all in the expenses, that you'd have to pay for literally one lap.
So what you need to do in order to succeed in this industry is you need to find someone who supports you, values you, who is wealthy, who will sponsor you, and basically bet that you are going to succeed so they can help pay for your clothes, pay for your kit, pay for your car, pay for your laps, pay for your training.
100%. It racing is like it's like casino. It's gambling. It is
It is, isn't it?
It is. It is portrayed in a very beautiful way because I'm very passionate about racing.
Yeah.
My parents were passionate. They were diehard fans of motorsport. That's why they gambled everything. Like my parents, loaned off our house. They sold anything. They sold anything that they could sell. Like, I mean, I love my parents for it. It's like it's the Filipino in them. They wanted me to live my dreams. Like, I always say it as a joke, but my dad would sell his liver if it meant that I could drive a Formula car. Like,
Really?
it's just I'm so thankful for them, and that is the reason why I'm here today. It really is, because I had parents who really gambled everything just so I could be here.
Hey, so you're 6 years old, right?
Yes.
6 years old. When I was 6 years old, I was eating bark from a tree. Like I was not thinking about getting a go-kart or a car or thinking about motorsport in any way. What drove you? What is that moment? How it's a unique thing to fall in love with.
Yes.
And sort of generalizing here, but especially as sort of a young girl to fall in love with motorsport.
I picked it up from my dad. He, to me, I'd call him, a frustrated racing driver. He dreamt of being a Formula car driver, dreamt of, making it to F1, but didn't have the money nor the talent, maybe.
Hope he's not listening.
Yeah. I love you, Dad. But he was so damn passionate. My dad is the only person in the world that can live and breathe motorsport and talk about it 24/7 in the dining table, before we sleep, before anything. We
Wow.
talk about racing. And I just saw it so early on in my life. Like, my first ever memory of like being like a child was not even like running around and breaking like a leg or breaking an arm or doing something stupid. It's literally being at the track, and my dad already got me this tailor-made racing suit, and he's put me in a go-kart, and I was 3 years old. So I drove a go-kart for the first time at the age of 3. I don't even think it was safe at that time, to be honest.
Is that legal? I don't know if that's legal.
I don't think so.
They just put you in there and just said, "Go on, let's go."
Exactly. It was like so I drove like, I mean, I didn't go very fast. It was a 60cc like powered engine.
It's still not that little.
It's still
60cc. I was driving a 90cc motorbike maybe when I was like 6. I remember.
Yeah, it has some decent power to it. I remember like spinning out a few times, but it's toughened me up, surely. Like,
Yeah.
like my mom always told me that, like, she was certain that like I was never gonna be feminine because of just how boyish I was growing up. Like, obviously I grew up in a racetrack where it's always been like boys left and right, and like I always tried to like fit in, obviously, so I wouldn't be picked on. So I'd like wear a snapback, I'd wear like baggy clothes, and my mom was like, "Oh, she's so masculine. I hope she wears makeup one day." And here I
Really?
am today, Mom.
Oh my God. But that's interesting, right? So you fell in love with it from this early age. You get into the car, you start doing it. And then you obviously you've got a big combination there, right? Which happens with anything, which is where you love it and you also have a talent for it. And that's like a big thing. I think sometimes when parents have a real love for a sport, whether it's, I don't know, running or cricket or football or whatever it is, sometimes what happens is the kids are kind of pushed into it, but maybe don't have the love for it. You had the love as well as the
100%.
talent.
Racing is my first love. It's like, happy Valentine's, everyone. But
Yeah.
racing was my first love. It was like, it's like I am also very passionate about other things. Like, I love drawing and being creative, but it's like when I draw, I do it when I'm happy. I do it when I'm in a state of mind. But with racing, I do it sad. I do it mad. I do it angry. It's something that I was so willing to bleed for, and it just became. It was my whole world. Like, it was my everything. Like, I didn't really know anything else. the earliest memory I had as a kid was being in a car. My favorite memory is at the track. My favorite moment with me and my dad and my mom is at the track, or racing or competing somewhere. It's just everything about me revolved around motorsport, and it's the best thing about me as well. It's the thing I love about me is the fact that I race cars and I go fast in circles for a living.
What are you an only child?
I've got a brother, so there's two of us. Yeah.
Is your brother into racing?
My brother isn't into racing, unfortunately, but so I think that was also one of the earliest struggles that we really had, and that's why I always felt guilty about racing, because it is such a privileged sport, and my brother, he's always been in and out of hospital since we were young, to be honest. He's got a heart problem, and he's also got autism and Down syndrome. So it was so selfish of me to really pursue the sport, and every single time I felt guilty of getting in a car and driving, and instead of like helping my brother out or being there for my brother or financially, supporting my brother more. Um, but at the same time, it inspired me so much that I was like, I've got no other option but to succeed, because I've got my parents relying on me. I've got my brother relying on me. I have to like support them obviously when I grow older. So I think that's what's been always been my key motivation. It's like, as staying in the Philippines, it's called like a breadwinner. When you're like the breadwinner of the family, you have no option. You really have to succeed. You got to do whatever it takes.
That is the hard thing. You've spoken about your parents and your dad. From what I've read and understood, is that your dad lived away and he worked 3 jobs
Yeah.
to help pay for everything that went on.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, honestly, my parents, like, I always speak so highly of them, because they made sacrifices that I don't think even I could make. Honestly, it is insane. It is out of this world. I always say that. My mom, she's the strongest woman I know. She's been my role model, because she had to be both a mother and a father to me. She'd had to, do the difficult conversations. She had to drive me everywhere. She had to cook the breakfast and the dinner. She was everything. My mom, to me, when I imagine her, she's like everything to everyone. And obviously my dad, having making the sacrifice of living so far away from his family, or far away from me and my brother, and working 3 jobs. Like, it's so funny, because he'd obviously work 7 days a week, and 3 jobs, and he'd always go straight to Western Union after a week of work just to send money back home to Philippines and make ends meet. And to me, that's the earliest memory, and that's why I've always been open about talking about the struggles, because they were very real. Like, I've heard my parents fight about money and fight about paying off debts and loans. Obviously, if a race doesn't go well and I have a crash, that's another extra money that they'd have to pay for. And, just all these things that, to me, as it was my childhood. Other kids' childhood were like running around playing with kids
Yeah.
and everything. But to me, it was, I faced the difficulties very early on, and my parents never hid it from me, which is something I'm so grateful for, because it's toughened me up in multiple ways.
Do you think it does? Do you think it toughens you up as a kid, where you just, because you realize that life isn't all roses and sunshine?
No,
And it's not, and
it's
it
not.
really isn't.
It isn't, and it's something I'm so grateful for. I didn't have the privilege of believing in fairy tales, so I just had to make my own. And I think because of that, it's allowed me to be so realistic of viewing things, and and being so okay with not being okay, and being so okay with failing. I think that's one
Wow.
of the great lessons that I learned from my parents. Obviously, they were my role model. They were, to me, my pillar, and they taught me so much. And one of the main things it taught me is, failing. It's such a it's a very taboo topic to talk about, and on social media, or even with other people, like talking about not getting a job, or failing an exam, or not getting this interview and stuff like that. And it's something that is so like taboo to talk about. But my parents, we tabled everything, after a bad race, or after, difficult moments or stuff like this, we always talked about it. And I was always treated as an adult. And not because I didn't have a choice, but because I needed to from a sport. Because we couldn't afford to just do it as a hobby. We couldn't afford to just go have fun, enjoy. Like, for me, that wasn't my reality. The truth was that it wasn't just for fun. Like, it wasn't just for fun. It was something that
It was life.
It was life.
Yeah.
It was a beginning of a career that I would embark on. And my parents told me that if this is something that you're just gonna one day throw away and one day get over with and fall out of love with, then we can't take that risk.
There's so many things here that I want to unpack, which I find so interesting, right? Which is, firstly, the failing thing is really important. I think that we, as humans, we don't realize failure until as we get a little bit older, mostly. Yeah. And your one also, Bianca, which is so interesting, is your failings are so in the present. If you failed, it was on your family and everything. That's a lot of pressure to have, because if you crash in the car, then that's money that has to be spent.
Yes.
So you physically, literally couldn't go to a race and crash.
No.
Because if you crashed...
we couldn't afford it. Yeah.
You literally couldn't afford to crash.
No. And that is something that, that constantly my parents would tell me. Like, use your brain and, don't take risky moves. Be smart. Use your brain. We can't afford to crash. We can't afford to buy spare parts. We can't afford to do this and that. And it's something that I've always been thankful for, because like I said, my parents were tough on me. My parents were very strict. First of all, because I was that breadwinner of the family. Mm-hmm. I had to be, even though I wasn't the eldest, I had to be the eldest and really show my parents that maturity. And because I was pursuing something that is difficult, where failure is so inevitable in racing. You lose more than you win, I think, in any sport. So my parents showed me that when I lost, they would never sugarcoat it. They'd never be like, you did a great job, you did your best, you did this, you did that. Whenever I'd lose, first of all, they'd be my parents and console me and tell me they love me. And I think that's so important, where they still showed me love even though I lost, to make me realize that losing doesn't make them love me less. It just meant that I had to go through failing and I had to go through and learn from failure. So they'd love me and then show me, my mistakes. They'd sit me down and tell me that things I could have done differently, things I can work on for the next race. And they were very, very practical people. And I think that's a common mentality you have when you don't have the luxury to mess around. You don't have the luxury to have another shot. Like, my parents would always tell me that I have to drive every race as if it's my last. And then I realized, actually, as I grew up, that mentality has gotten me so far. But it's one of the main things that is holding me back now as I'm older.
Explain that.
And that is one of the greatest realization I've had in like the recent years. Like, obviously, I was a development driver for McLaren, so I've had the amazing opportunity to learn from the best in the sport. Learning from McLaren, the engineers, everyone, the drivers, Lando, Oscar, people that have made it in the sport. And one of the greatest things they taught me is to never fear failing. To me, I was driven because I was afraid to crash, because I was afraid to lose, because my parents, because of my family, because of this and that. So my main motivator, we've got two things that motivate us. It's the fight or flight thing. Yeah. It's the pleasure and fear that sometimes get interlinked. And to me, I wanted to make my parents proud and happy, and make myself happy too, by obviously winning, that I would use fear as a main motivator. And as I got older, I realized how unhappy that kind of made me.
Wow.
And like I said, it's gotten me so far because of that. And now it's only getting me so far because of it as well. And one of the main things I've had to learn, the past years is actually to really not relate my self-worth to my success.
Yeah.
I think to me will be the biggest learning, the biggest takeaway I can ever take in motorsport. If I walk away now from racing, that is the biggest takeaway that I will bring with me until like until my last day here in this planet, is to really never relate your self-worth to your career. And to me, because I was so personally invested, because
Yeah.
my parents invested their whole being, their whole everything to the sport, that I always felt like I had to as well. I felt like if I lose my dignity, I lose my worth, I'm worthless, and this and that and so on. Because that's just how I thought. That's just how I grew up in. That's the environment I grew up in. Because we couldn't afford it, because we weren't fortunate enough.
That's really interesting you say that, because it's in the least patronizing way, and please don't take it. That's so mature of you, because the fear is driving you, right? The fear that's what is making you succeed, but that's also what's holding you back, which is such a good point, right? Because actually you have to not fear failing.
Yeah.
So fear is really great because you're scared of, like, you don't want to fail there. But
I want to do so well, so I don't want like exactly, that is so it. Like for me,
yeah, I get it.
I succeeded because I didn't want to lose.
Poker is an interesting game,
Yeah.
right? Because with poker, the way real professional poker players work is that they're not afraid of losing the money. So that's why they win, is because they don't actually care about losing the money. That's just part of it. They let themselves be free. And the more free you can be in the car and not actually fear the failing, the more you take those risks, the more you push it, the more those little hairline things get better, right?
100%. Like you can never perform to your full capabilities and abilities if you've got even a slither of a thought of crashing. That is the whole concept.
How do you block that out?
That's the whole concept of racing. Like, as I don't know how to explain it in even in words, but it's something that you can only experience when you drive. You're going in speeds of 280 kilometers per hour. You're literally dancing with the car. You're so close to the wall, to the edge, to the grass. You're making micro corrections. You're dancing. It is. And then all of a sudden you just think of, oh, I'm scared I'm going to crash, and I'm scared I'm going to damage the car. You lose it and you're in the wall immediately. And this is something that has happened to me, where I lost concentration because I was scared that I was going to crash. And then I did end up crashing.
You sort of manifested itself in the car.
It is, because you are what you think in the car. That's why it is such a mental battle. Like motorsport is maybe 40% physical and the rest is all mental. It's such a mental game. It's the pressure, it's the fear, it's the anxiety, it's the people, it's the crowd watching you, cheering for you, booing. It is intense.
When you sit in the car, and how you said 280, how fast does it go?
And so I drive a GB3, which can get close to 270, 280 kilometers per hour.
Okay, just give it to me. When you sit in the car and you have the helmet on,
yeah.
Okay, and you're going for it, right? And I'm going to sit there with you, okay?
Okay.
How quick are things coming? Because when I go on the motorway and I hit that 60 miles an hour, things are coming quick. And I'm constantly thinking about crashing. I'm like, oh God, please don't crash. Try and explain it to someone who hasn't been there. What is it like? How fast are things coming? How do you see it? Do you see it in slow motion? How does it work?
Honestly, you go so fast that you become the scenery, you join the scenery. Like,
Wow.
I think that's one thing I can only explain. Like, when you're driving a smooth Sunday drive, calm Sunday drive, you get to enjoy the surroundings, the greens, the scenery. But when you drive a race car, you become the scenery, you join it. It's like you're going so fast that sometimes your eyes can't even keep up. That it's all very instinctual. Like, racing is instinct. It's either you have it or you don't. That's really to a certain extent, yes. Like, that's why there's people that are just so gifted in the sport, like generational talent, which I'm not. I'm not generational. I'm not a Senna. I'm not Schumacher. No, nothing. Because those people are so gifted in many different ways. For example, one of my heroes, Niki Lauda, he's my all-time hero, and he's always been known for having It's a quote in the movie, so it's a quote. It didn't come from me, for having a great ass that can feel anything in a car. He said that, not me. And that is such a gift, because when you're driving a car and you're experiencing so many different things, you're driving fast, you're driving a straight line, you're cornering, you're experiencing lateral G, you're turning the wheel, you're braking, you're trailing into the corner, you're apexing, you reach the apex, the middle point of the corner, you start accelerating as you're getting off the brakes, and you start unwinding the steering wheel. It's everything. It's the hand and eye coordination, it's your foot, it's your fingers, you're shifting, obviously you're speaking with your engineer on the radio, and then you have to feel what's happening in the car. Like, that's why it goes hand in hand. A great car can only be developed by a great driver. And Nick Lauda was one of those drivers that can feel anything in the car. Like, he could literally be like going into a corner, understeer, oversteer. Oh, that's because of this. That's because of that. He was so meticulous about the finer details, about what he felt. Because you can feel a lot of things. Like, for example, when you tell me you're going fast, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, when you reach like 60 miles per hour, you're like, okay, I need to slow down because the car is like feeling light. It's like, I'm going fast. Like, your first instinct was to slow down, but driver's first instinct is to go even faster. So then you kind of have that like thought process, and like, how do I go faster when you're turning a corner? It's like, it's so much geometry into it as well. There's so much math into it and physics. It's actually crazy.
Have you ever had a bad crash?
I've always been fortunate. I have somehow, I've crashed here and there, but I've never had a bad one. That, knock on wood, yes.
Knock on wood.
I've never really had a bad one. And people tell me that after you have that one big one, it's kind of like it changes you a little bit. Like, it's like, oh shoot, I'm not as invincible as I thought I was. I'm not, and that's why it takes, again, that certain mentality to accept that there is that chance you can crash, but to not, to not hide away from it, but to not let it linger in your mind, because then there's a bigger chances that it can happen. So there's that fear factor. Obviously, everyone fears of getting injured or crashing or getting hurt, right? But you think of racing, there's always risk. Like, I think one of the biggest crashes was actually in Silverstone. I think it was Lewis Hamilton. Oh wait, no, it was Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen going into Cops. I think it was like one of like the strongest crash impact in history of Formula One, and it was like close to like 51 G.
What is that? What does that mean to normal, like?
I don't have the capacity to explain how much that is.
That's G-force, though. It's like 51 G-force.
Yeah, it's 51.
Because you're going so fast, so suddenly stopping like that.
Yeah, so basically that's what kills you. It's not the crash. It's going from 100 to 0 that kills you. That rate of deceleration kills you. And, that's why you think of airplanes. They don't land and then stop immediately. They have a rolling time of when they just kind of let the car or let the plane keep going and then slowly come to a stop. And you think of crashing, that's when you go from in crazy speeds to then all of a sudden nothing, 0. And so I think that was the strongest impact of a crash written in Formula One.
I mean, the mental strain of a race is huge. But there's also the physical. How tiring is it to do a race? Is it tiring?
It is.
Are you sure? So I couldn't do it.
You're a rugby player. Like, surely you've got...
When I was 17. Glad
I
you
had
remembered.
to say that before I say anything else.
Okay,
I'd be like, no, but it's crazy. But you can see different physiques from different athletes. Rugby players, you know this. They're built.
They're big, yeah.
They're big, they're built, they're strong, they're muscular. They're like... It's just different type of strength compared to racing. Like, you'd see F1 drivers. F1 drivers' weight range from like 65 to 79 or 80 kgs.
So quite light.
That's very light. That is so light, yet so strong. You can see drivers that can lift the same weight as bodybuilders, but they're like half their size, because we've got so much compact like muscle and lean muscle, because we have to be. When you're fighting through G-force, we get stronger not from lifting, we get stronger from driving the car and withstanding the G-force. It's like, G-force means it's like you're walking around like the planet with like carrying like maybe a 30 kg backpack. Like that's what we constantly have to do in the car. It's literally it. So we're being pushed to the side, front, and back, and like imagine someone constantly pushing you like
It's
this.
your neck muscles which have to be so
yes,
strong.
yes. Have yeah,
No,
my
you
neck-
don't. I'm just saying, like that's because I'm just thinking about your head and the way that you spin and just constantly moving. So that means you have to be in the gym every day, pretty much.
I'm at the gym, yeah, every day. Obviously, if I'm not traveling or driving, I train every day. It has been. I honestly find it peace. Sometimes it's for the body. Most of the time, it's for the mind.
Yeah,
Like
agreed.
when I'm in the gym, I'm just like I feel so strong. I feel like I can
Achieve
conquer
anything.
anything. So I'm normally at the gym every day, 3 hours a day. So it's been like it's pretty much like a day job for me, like training. So yeah.
Maggie, you're a real inspiration.
Oh,
No, you are, and I really want you to know that, because I
like-
really do, because what your story and your maturity and your drive, it's
Thank
pretty special.
you.
Was there ever a point when you nearly gave up racing, when you thought it wasn't going to happen?
Yeah.
There was?
Oh, 100%. Like I gone through obviously my fair share of, slump, I was depressed and everything even.
Were
Like
you?
100%. Yeah, and this was actually during the pandemic.
So how old would you have been then?
I was
16?
14.
14?
I was 14 during the pandemic. I was a baby. Yeah, 14, turning 15. So that was during the pandemic, and that was like my last year of junior karting. So I got a free drive, everything sponsored by factory teams to drive for Asia, because I'd won the junior karting title the previous year. So coming into the next year, I was supposed to be sponsored everything. We wouldn't have to pay a single penny. We would just have to cover flights and accommodation, obviously food. And then I read on the news that there was this outbreak in China and we'd have to go through quarantine. And then obviously I knew to myself that there's a huge chance I might not be racing this year, which that to me is so detrimental in my career. If I miss a year, I might never get back at it again.
Wow.
Because we didn't have the money. It wasn't like we would just, it wasn't like my dad would just swipe a credit card and I can race again. That took months and days of conversation, of talking to people, begging them if they can sponsor me. And then all of it down the drain because of the pandemic. Something completely out of my control and out of anyone's control. I'm still fortunate enough that I didn't lose any of my close relatives to COVID or during the pandemic. So I still classify myself as very lucky. But at the same time, I had so much hatred during that period, that I was telling myself that I did everything I could. I drove, I smiled, I talked, I did everything I could to make it. And still it was taken away from me just like that. And I couldn't even fight. I had no fight in me. So obviously I went through a huge phase of depression and denial, of questioning I don't deserve it. I'm so unlucky. If I came from a wealthy family, this wouldn't have happened. If I was in Europe, then it would have been okay and all those things. And
that's hard to accept as a kid as well.
it's hard, especially at that time I was 15, 14, 15. I speak now with so much knowledge, and I look back on myself with a smile, knowing that, oh, she didn't know it then. But at that time I took it to heart. I was like, this is it. This is it. This is the end of the line for me. It's all over, to the point where I spoke to my parents, told them that I want to stop, trying for it, even if next year the pandemic, eases off and we can go back racing again. I don't want to try anymore. I've lost that fight in me. I told my parents that. So I was retired for 3 years. I wasn't racing. And yeah, I wasn't racing for 2.5 years. I was focusing on studies. I was graduating. I, was going into college. That's why I actually took STEM. I took science, technology, engineering, and mathematics because I wanted to be an engineer and hopefully one day be at the track, not as a driver, but maybe an engineer.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I was like full on. I was working. I was like studying, making sure that I could get into the top uni. Like I was trying to go for UC Berkeley in America.
On a scholarship?
Yeah, on a scholarship.
Because they're
And-
expensive.
Yeah, very expensive. So I did. I had the grades for it and everything. And then one day I just woke up and I had my silver lining. I had my second chance. I, got a call from my manager now, Daryl Young. Daryl is an amazing racing driver, one of like the most decorated racing driver in Asia. He's won multiple championships all over Europe. He's from Hong Kong. And he actually spotted me when I was 13 and I had won this race. And he came up to me and he was like, "You've got so much potential. You got to keep pushing. And then when you make that transition from karting to Formula cars, give me a call." Obviously, I didn't give him a call because I didn't make that transition. The pandemic happened. But he sent me a messenger, a chat on Messenger asking me how I was. I responded. I'm good. I'm studying now. And he was really shocked that, he asked why I wasn't racing. And I was told him that because we never had any money to begin with and we definitely don't have now. And so that conversation led to, a call, a meeting, and that also led to, Daryl managing me. So he then became my mentor and my manager. And he was the first person that actually funded my racing career.
Wow.
He, from his own pocket.
Which would have been how much, do you think?
I've no idea, but definitely close to, at that time it was a lot. Like obviously it was about 80 to 100 grand to initially start off my Formula car career. Out of his own pocket, he paid. I still get so emotional when I speak about it, but obviously we couldn't afford it. I couldn't even afford to graduate because I was so behind on my tuition in school and everything. So Daryl, out of his own pocket, paid for my tuition so I could graduate. He paid for my braces so I could take them off because we put them on for loan. It was a loan. But unfortunately, we couldn't pay for it, so I couldn't get it out. So I've had it on long for an excess of 3 years because we couldn't afford to get it taken out. So he paid for that. He paid for my medical so I could get a racing license. He paid for my ticket so I could fly to America and drive, and practice and test Formula cars. So he did everything. He was the one that initially funded my racing career. And now we're here today.
That's incredible.
I was very fortunate. He is my lucky star, and today, he's my strongest ally. He's my strongest pillar, and he's my mentor. Everything I know now, I got from him. The mentality, the passion, and obviously, because I couldn't afford to, to spend money in the race, I had to build my own brand so I could then earn money from working with brands and sponsorship and endorsement deals so I can fund my career and fund myself. That's why I made a choice of leaving home at the age of 16, turning 17, to leave home and be financially independent and not ask money from my parents because I wanted to take that burden away from them. And I've been working hard, doing 10 interviews a day, working with different brands so I could fund my life and my career.
I want to high five you. That is amazing. That's an incredible story. Is that mentality from your parents and from you, is that a cultural thing or is it a unique thing?
100%.
It is.
It's so cultural. Like, obviously, now I live in UK. I'm surrounded by people that didn't grow up in the same environment as I did. I didn't grow up in the same culture as I did, which is so shocking.
Is it really?
Yes.
But you don't be afraid to say it. Like explain it to me because I'm super interested in this. Let me explain why. Okay, I recently got married, right?
Congrats.
Thank you so much. It was like doing prom. I sort of I had flowers. I said, well, let's get married. But what I didn't think about when you get married, right, is that I meet this person, we fall in love. Oh my God, that's amazing. Let's go on and live together happily ever after. But two families come together, and two families have two different ways of living. The way that we celebrated Christmas, or the way that we went on holidays, or the way that we book restaurants, like from the small to the big. And for me, that was a huge shock. Like, oh, wait, you don't do it the same that I did it? My wife is half Arabic as well, so there's lots of cultural things going on that are very different, right? So when you so explain that more to me. In the UK, you were shocked at the mentality of people, and go deep, try and go deep, and I don't feel like you're going to offend me or anyone at all.
So there's actually this amazing analogy that my sports psychologist told me. It's like, it's not related to racing at all, but it was just a way for her showing me that differences in people. So imagine, obviously, you got married, like your partner and you know, you both grew up in different houses, and you come together thinking that, oh, I want her to live at my house. And she's thinking that, no, I want him to live at my house. So you come together in two different, you know, lives and forms and shapes and everything. You come together at one and thinking that I want him to come to mine. No, he wants to come to his and stuff like that. But what you should actually be doing is take the bricks of the houses that you've all built from different experiences in life in different forms, and take the good ones, good bits from one or the other, and build your own house together. And that is, for me, the perfect harmony in life. When you pick up all the good bricks and build a perfect house that you live in and you grow old in and you make families and good memories in. And that analogy translates so much in your career, in life, in everything. You know, you don't come to your office showing all the bad bricks and showing all the bad habits. You come there and you put your best foot forward. And so does everyone else. In racing, in motorsport, you know, you work with so many different people that come from different forms of life, you know, experienced younger generation, or, you know, coming from multi backgrounds or not, engineer, or it's so many different things. And you think of like engineering a car and you're like, I can't do all of it. I can't, all my good bricks is not enough to build that house. So you ask bricks from other people, you ask help from different people that have the tools that can help you be the best driver or build the best car for you to win. And that for me was the analogy that made me understood why the difference is so important in your life. You know, they always say you have different things for different reasons. You've got friends that are good for different reasons. Some good for life, some good for health, some good for partying, some good for laughs. And that is also for racing. So for me, I've just, you know, when I came here, obviously I wanted people to be the same as I was, you know, like I'm Asian. I love rice. I love eating heavy breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and I expected my friends to do the same. But no, they do brunch instead of heavy breakfast. So I was like, "What? You don't eat fish for breakfast? What?" And that shocked me because they were like, "Oh, let's go grab a scone and tea for brunch." And I was like, "That's not enough. Where's the rest of it?" And obviously those are just the cultural differences that I've had to bend and realize that, oh, it's because we didn't grow up in the same house, we didn't grow up with the same bricks, that makes us different. And
that is beautiful, by the way. I love that analogy. I love that analogy of bringing each brick from different places and putting it together and building a house.
And that is literally how you build the best car with the best team. It's not the one with the best driver. It's not the one with the best engineer. It's not the one with the best mechanic, because one person isn't enough. It's when you bring the best out of everyone to give you the best opportunity and to be the best chances. And it then makes sense in sport and everything, and how come, you know, athletes are so athletes' performance so detrimental to their environment. You see, you know, you read about athletes, or in basketball and football, you know, when they struggle with their coaches or they struggle to build a relationship with their teammates, and why it's so detrimental. And it is like that in life as well. So yeah.
How do you build a sense of home when you're so far away?
Oh gosh, I try to bring as many bricks from the Philippines to UK as much as I can.
So when did you come to the UK?
I moved here about a year ago, so I live here now.
Was that a big move?
Oh gosh, I wish I could bring the sun with me, but that's one thing I couldn't do.
You can't do that. No. We don't like the sun here. We just like it. We like it to rain and be miserable, and we like to talk about it a lot.
That to me was the most difficult thing about moving to UK. You know, it's because to me, I was like, I need to go to a place where I can easily blend in. Like, you know, UK is perfect. Everyone speaks English. It'll be easy. And then I was like, people speak English, but I still don't understand it. So it's not as easy as I thought it was. And then...
Yeah, I can imagine.
Because it's funny, like, I work with obviously a British team now.
Yeah.
Some of them from Scotland, some of them are from the north, some of them are from, I forgot what it's called.
Wales?
Yeah, Wales is also really difficult. And then there's this accent. It's
Essex?
Like, nope, it's
Okay.
it's called the Brummie accent.
From Birmingham.
From Birmingham.
Yeah.
And I would still have to constantly repeat myself, and I just keep telling myself I might as well have just lived in Italy or something.
It's hard. It is hard.
It is very difficult. I always had like, you know, an abundant amount of sunlight, vitamin D, and then I come to UK and I don't see the sun for a month. And I'm like, I don't even want to get out of bed. I'm frowning. And I get a message from my manager, actually. I obviously posted a story, I think I posted a selfie. And then my manager messaged me and be like, what happened to your smiley face? Why are you all grumpy now?
I now live in the UK.
I now live in the UK, Daryl.
I now live in the UK.
Yeah. So
And welcome. And you're welcome.
So that's been my excuse now. So yeah, it definitely affects people. Like in the Philippines, everyone's like smiling. Like that's one of the best things I like about myself. I'm very high energy.
You have
I'm
this
very
great
bubbly.
energy about. So coming here and then seeing the mentality of people your age, it must be different, right?
It is honestly one of like the most like probably not shocking. I wouldn't say shocking, but like the biggest thing that like made me realize the differences in people. Like obviously my generation, that's one thing, but but the other is when I first moved to UK, I obviously had to go buy my stuff. I had to go buy bed sheets, furniture, everything. And obviously it was about 5 p.m. and I was at the mall. And like literally an hour later, they told me that the mall's closing. I was like, what do you mean it's closing? It's only 7 p.m. It's a mall. It can't be closing. And they told me that, oh yeah, we close the mall here around 8 p.m. because people got to go back home. And I was like, are you serious? What do you mean? I'm not done. I thought it was open till late. Like, because
That's
in the
just what happened in the
Philippines.
Philippines.
In the Philippines, or even in Asia, we're open 24/7. We're open all days of the week. We're open from 9 a.m. till like 12 p.m. Oh, sorry, 12 a.m. or like 11 p.m.
Wow.
People work till midnight in the Philippines, and that is just a common like work culture.
So if you had to put this in order, maybe this is tricky, between sort of like friends, family, work, what order would that go in sort of Asian culture?
Work.
Work is the top?
Work, because if you work well and you can provide well, that translates to prioritizing your family.
Wow.
So that's the mentality in the Philippines. You know, our way of giving love isn't by saying, I love you. My parents, I could count a handful of times when my parents told me they love me.
Get out of here.
Oh, maybe a bit more, handful and maybe a toe or something. but like, it's just not, it's very uncommon to say, I love you. It is. To me, it's like nearly like a reward. When my parents tell me they love me, is like, if I get a good grades, if I get a good raise, they maybe tell me, I love you, you did a good job. But, you know, my parents, their way of showing love is, you know, providing. Like, we are such providers. You know, my parents are such providers to the extent that they would save up every single penny to give me that go-kart or to give me a new helmet so I wouldn't feel left behind with the other drivers. You know, that's their way of showing love. And it's never by words or by actions. It's being a provider. And I think that is the main difference here in UK. Like, I see kids that still live with their parents even when they're like 22, 23, and it's quite common. It's
Try 30, some people do. I mean, and above. I had a friend who's still living with the parents. He's 33.
I mean, it's very uncommon in the Philippines. Like,
That's the polite way of putting it. I like it.
like,
Is it really?
It
That
is.
Would that be seen as someone who is failing? You can be honest. It's okay.
I obviously we've got different
Bricks.
Yeah, different bricks. Obviously, some have it tougher, some have it easier. We have also got different definitions of failing, but I think that would definitely be a definition of failing in the Philippines. And because we are such providers, that my parents are such providers that they expect me to provide for them when they're older, and that's normal. Like, they've done so much for me that I owe it so much to them to give them a comfortable life. Like, that's why I work hard, so I can, it's like one of the greatest pleasure in life was actually when I flew my parents to UK for the first time. So the first time they ever came to UK, I flew them from Philippines to London for New Year's, and I took them out on nice dinners and stuff like that, and to them it was everything. It is so much, like, they carry that experience with so much pride. My mom goes back home to Philippines telling everyone, like, oh, my Bianca brought me to the restaurant, and it's so and with a Filipino accent and everything, and to them that's love. And it's just it's just differences. It's just different culture.
I cannot wait to see you in the F1. It's gonna be amazing. You're amazing. You truly are.
Oh.
Listen, I like to end the conversation with 10 questions or 8 questions. Are you ready for this?
Oh gosh. Okay.
Are you ready for this? Quick fire or whatever you want. You ready for
I
it?
can't do quick things.
Okay, you can, apart from racing. Okay. Are you ready for this?
Yes.
What's a saying or phrase that always makes you smile or cheers you up?
Oh gosh, why are we starting with a tough one already?
I don't know. That is quite
It's
tough.
actually really tough.
Is there anything that your parents say or your dad says to you or your mum or...
that makes me smile?
Yeah.
It's not something that makes me smile, but like, okay, it does make me smile. It's not a saying though. It's like, so when I'm gonna give a story behind it because I can't do quick fire things. So when I was young, my parents would always buy me things that are always one size bigger. Like for shoes and clothes. So I just walk around the house or around like places with like big shoes, because my parents would always want me to be like, oh, so you can wear them next year. So I think that's something that still makes me smile. Like, I've grown into the habit of like wearing bigger things so I can wear them next year. And that makes me smile.
I love that. That's great. Best compliment anyone's ever given you?
My skin color. People like my tan, and that's one of the main things that I love about myself.
What scares you most about yourself?
My habit of being obsessive over things. Like when someone tells me I can't do it, I obsess over it until I become good. Like golf. I'm literally like sending my video to ChatGPT so he can analyze my swing.
Are you serious? You can do that? I'm gonna do that. What? Are you serious? You're doing that?
I'm like, life hacks, but yes.
Are you serious? What?
Yes. You literally record like your swing, and ChatGPT will literally give you like things to work on and like exercises how to be better and like your grip and stuff like that.
I know what
It's
I'm doing this
amazing.
evening. I can't wait.
It's
That's amazing.
Yes.
When was the last time you cried?
I don't know, like a few days ago. Just happy tears sometimes. It doesn't have to be sad. Crying doesn't have to be sad.
Crying doesn't have to be sad. What's something you can't let go of?
Something I can't let go of. My habit of eating rice and fish in the morning. I'm sorry. I'll brush my teeth, but
That's so good.
I can't.
What's your guilty pleasure?
Snacking on shrimps.
Snacking on shrimps?
I always have like pack of shrimps from like Waitrose and stuff, like this ready to eat.
I know the
peeled
ones.
Prawns.
And you just eat them with no sauce, nothing?
Nothing, just be like snack.
Those are your snack in your bag? Warm prawns? Okay, all right. What turns you off?
People that aren't able to put themselves in other people's shoes.
What makes you excited? What turns you on? What makes you love life?
Planning. Like having something to look forward to.
What do you like most about yourself?
My smile, maybe. Yeah, I like smiling.
And last one, who's your favourite Formula One driver?
Oh gosh, who wrote these? Current or?
Anyone you can say. That make it easier for you.
I mean, I know this easily. It's Niki Lauda. He's my favorite, but probably currently on the grid. I'd have to say Oscar Piastri.
Yeah.
He's such a great driver and such a amazing human being.
Thank you, you're amazing. Thank you so
Oh,
much for that.
thank
That has been
you.
incredible. I really appreciate it. You've been amazing.
I enjoyed that.
That was amazing.
That was so fun.
You're so good.
It's like having a friend in front of cameras.